the last session of Games Gathering. Hello everyone who are newcomers. I'm really happy that this is the last session, because after this session Dolby can only. So now I would like to represent my dearest friend, one of the most passionate girl about developers and gaming industry, Elena Lobova.
Thank you.
And she'll represent everybody. So, Lena, please, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Can you hear me well? Does it work? Okay. Welcome to the last session of Games Gathering 2018. Did you enjoy the conference? Did you enjoy these 2 days? Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope you will be more active, because this is a Q&A session, and most questions will be from your side. But before this, let me introduce myself and our dear guests. My name is Elena Lobova. I'm a founder at Achievers Hub. At Achievers Hub, we help talented, independent game developers get published, get connected to investors, partners around the world, get funding, and so on and so on. We work closely with both developers and publishers, trying to ensure that the process of pitching and negotiation goes smoothly for both parties. But there are so many situations that might happen. There is so many things that might go wrong. And I've heard a lot of stories, both from developers and from publishers. And just to show you what might happen during the pitching, I'll show you a few slides. These are real life situations, and some of them happen to the people sitting over here right now. So first of all, here is a publisher and developer. Publisher wears hat. Just to distinguish them, at one of the conferences where I showed this, part of the slides, somebody joked that publisher wears hat because he has money to buy hat, and developer doesn't have money yet. So just a few real life examples. For example, it might happen that developer doesn't know his target audience very well. He doesn't know the market very well and his game very well. Click, yeah. It also might happen that developer is to have a very high self-esteem, and they expect publishers to do a lot. It might happen that they require too much attention. This is a real life from one of the panelists today, by the way. Sometimes they have not that much to show, like almost nothing at all to show, just an idea, for example, and they still try to pitch. Sometimes they don't even know how much money do they need. They don't know what do they need from publishers at all. Sometimes they have too much to show, and this is a story from my life that really happened. Developer sent me a presentation on 63 slides. It was a pitch deck. So if you think about this as an elevator pitch, probably he should stuck in the elevator with a publisher for like 10 hours or something like that to do this pitch. Sometimes they have, as I said, too much to show, and they cannot distinguish which is main and which is best to show or not to show. But publishers are not perfect too. This is not real life situation, but this is how developers in general, if we listen to them, how they see publishers. They think publishers require too much information. They think the feedback takes too long, sometimes super long. And even then, publisher can ask for too many changes and iterate for too many times. And usually at the end, the game doesn't even go through. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure you'll hear more of the stories and different stories today, because today right here we have 5 real life publishers who will, spoiler, answer all of your questions. And let me finally introduce them. So we have here Jan Chichlowski, CEO of Mindsense Games. Ahmed Alsafar, games hunter and co-founder at PlayRebby. Halwe, licensing manager at Gamigo Group. Keren Berger, publishing business development manager at TabTale. And Steven Lee, head of business development at Deca Games. And by the way, I would like to say special thanks to Steven, because he replaced one of the panelists who couldn't come last minute. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Also, I urge you to be active with the questions, because our publishers didn't come empty-handed. They brought a lot of gifts. You can see them over there, like many gifts. Some of them tasty, some of them nice and cute, and some of them very special. There is a very special gift from Gamigo in this bag. Even I don't know what's inside, but I've heard it's super special. So you can start thinking about your questions already. And while you're thinking about your questions, I'll start with the general main question. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself, one by one, your background, and your current role in the company? Any order.
Guess I'll start since I have the microphone.
I have one as well.
Oh yeah, hey, hello. Okay. Okay, so I'm Steven from Deca Games. My publishing background is, I guess, started over 8 years ago with a publisher called Six Waves. We published a lot of games, social games on the Facebook platform for a lot of successful Russia CIS developers like Playrix, Game Insight, etc. So I have a lot of background in social games. Also a lot of publishing experience in Asia, where I was living for 18 years. So I can answer any questions you might have about that region. Currently, I'm heading up Deca Games. So we are focused on publishing or acquiring older titles. So basically, older games in your portfolio, we focus on making them successful again. So my expertise would be social, mobile, PC, free-to-play, Asia. Feel free to ask away. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Keren Berger. I work at TabTale. TabTale has more than 400 games on the App Store, but in the past 2 years we've been focusing on hyper-casual games. So my job is I'm a publishing business development manager, so I'm looking for new and great hyper-casual games to publish. I joined TabTale 4 years ago, and just up until recently I was the ASO manager and marketing operations manager of the company. And now I'm in the publishing.
Hello everyone, my name is Halwe. I'm working for the Gamigo Group. It's a Germany-based publisher of online free-to-play games. And my career actually started out not that long ago. It was back in 2013 where I started as a QA tester. So it's a really good entry job for everyone. And I've been doing the game sourcing, game licensing, and game evaluation business for Gamigo since 2015. And I've seen over 3,000 games so far. And yeah, I'm basically accompanying every deal from start to finish. The only thing I don't do is sign it. So, but I do everything else. And I'm a huge gamer. So
hello, добрый вечер. Спасибо, что вы здесь. Я рад, что здесь быть. I started in gaming for about 9 years. Worked for German companies publishing their game in Arabic. Then I moved to Peak Games, the Turkish one. Then for a couple of years started my own company. Our focus is to publish mobile games on Middle East and North Africa. That's me in Arabic language. That's it.
okay, I cannot do the Russian trick though.
Not yet.
Not yet, maybe later in the evening. I'm Chichlowski and I run a company called Mindsense Games. We do publish something very unusual nowadays, which is premium mobile games. They still exist. My company is kind of a subsidiary for a bigger company called BoomBit, and these guys are huge free-to-play developers and publisher in Poland. And my background is marketing in general. Believe it or not, but I used to work for pharmaceuticals, so totally different kind of business.
And 8 years ago, I joined gaming industry and I started to work for a company called Vivid Games, and I used to be head of marketing there. So I was in charge of all the deals, the publishing deals, including, and as well of all the promotion for our products and for the game of our portfolio for our clients. Pretty much that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Do we already have any questions from the audience? Or not yet? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're quick. Prepared. Oh, okay. Like 12 questions.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for coming. I have two questions. The first is, do you like more, how do you feel about ambition game devs? Do you like more ambition people or like more calm?
Ambition and passion, definitely.
Ambition and passion.
Yeah, that's it.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think also if you're very passionate about your game, your project, it helps to communicate this passion and the idea and the vision to the publisher. And it also helps us to see, okay, this is really a team that stands completely behind this game and that wants to get the game out there and wants to work with publishers for that.
Okay, and the second question is, I am bad in presentation and in grammar. How do I make publisher contest to publish my game?
Can you repeat it?
He said he's bad. Yeah.
I am bad in presentation and in grammar, so I can't write like long letters about my, but I'm good at game devs.
Make a short in-game video. Make a short
Ahmed, can you please use a microphone because it's recorded?
Oh, I'm loud. Thought I'm loud enough. So my tip it would be to make a short in-game video, 1 minute, showing what is the main characters of the game. For me, it's very important. I know I can't see is that something for me or not, how they play. Don't show how you do the menus and these things. No, just the main action in the game.
Like the main concept, what's happened.
Yes, and if it's an action game, if it's a match 3 or what is that, the main action in the game, that's more than enough, in my opinion. If I'm interested, I will talk. I will ask.
Yeah, sure.
So I would say it really depends on your ambition. So in the answer to your first question, we prefer passion in the beginning and then cooler heads later on when you're publishing. But the second question is for sure, if you're working with an international publisher, you're going to need to be able to present and communicate that properly. So I would say have someone help you prepare materials. There's probably plenty of people in the industry that act as consultants or even ask friends. So a lot of times, you know, I will just get feedback and ask my friends, hey, how does this sound to you? Or talk to other people. Even if they're not working for you, they may be able to help out. But I think so for example, if you're going to work with a publisher from your region, it's going to be less important for you to have good grammar because you can just communicate in your native tongue, right? But if you're planning to launch globally or to a publisher in a different territory, it's very important that you're going to be able to communicate effectively because later on, let's say you sign a publishing deal and you're not sure, like you're not completely 100% on all the deal terms and things like that and your expectations, you may run into trouble later. So I would encourage you to get some in-house help or some help on the side to make sure that everything is 100% clear.
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
And also I always give the advice to all game developers who want to reach the global audience, learn English. Yeah, that's just like a universal advice. I know it might take a lot of time, but still, before you know it perfectly, as Steven said, use your help. But if you know English, there are so many doors around that opens for you.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Actually, I feel that it's different on our company, and if you're gonna publish a hyper-casual game and wanna send it to us, it's okay if you'll send a gameplay video and a prototype or a link. It's very important to send a link like you showed in your presentation, but we are fine with gameplay and the link, and that's cool because we are looking for a massive amount of games, and it's different in the hyper-casual market, I guess.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
I have a question first.
Okay,
And a
so
very small
now it goes
I
backwards.
should answer that
Okay.
question?
So, how many developers here that really looking for a publisher? I just want to know who is our audience.
Okay.
Wow. So the one in the green, you don't look at anymore, right? Like you're just shortly showed it and not. Oh, okay.
Short part-time publisher.
No, he changed his mind after he's listened to us.
Yeah, and he's
hyper casual games. Are there any hyper casual? Ah, cool.
hyper casual. And by the way, have any one of you like already signed a publisher with a deal with a publisher early? Okay, we have. Okay, so you probably faced some of those situations, right? Okay, good. We had another question, please.
I have a question. Could you tell me the main target that you have during this conference? The first part of the question, and the second one, have you already seen some interesting games that you would probably invest in? So your target and interesting games.
What are you looking for?
What was the target for today's conference?
For the conference, but something happened.
Okay, so I mean, mostly the target for this conference was as it usually is for me. So looking for nice contacts and looking for interesting games. Usually, I think for most of us, it is the same target for pretty much every conference. And that's the answer for the first question. The second one is yes, I found, to be honest, I was a little bit surprised. I thought there would be more games that will be interesting. Maybe just my impression, but I don't know. But I found a couple that are very interesting. So yes, we started talking with them. The types of games. Okay. So the games, one of those games was kind of like a racing game, and it was basically about the. Oh yeah, hello.
Oh, these are great guys.
Actually, since I told you that I'm a subsidiary for BoomBit, so BoomBit is actually interested. Those very guys. Hello. And so yeah. That is something that looks interesting. It looks interesting because of the rich graphics and the way you guys made the whole customization and everything. So there is a huge monetization potential, and the games looked basically very much completed. That was one of the best things about it, and it looked very nice in terms of art. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question.
No. Well, I looking for mid-core, hardcore games. So PvP elements, that's what work in my market. But what that comes to the point where I raise it up with the guys before that, I was very, very surprised that very, very few of you fill their infos on the pane.
Yeah.
It was very, very hard to find any one of you.
In
like,
an application, he means.
It's
fine. Yeah.
I think it was. Sorry to say that, but it was one of my worst experience in events, and I'm doing that for the last 8 years.
So Pine was a pain this time.
Yes, like you didn't do your homework, guys. You should. How suppose we can find you? How should I know what kind of games you have? I saw only 5 games, and for the huge number of the audience here, it's nothing.
Thanks. Yeah.
Sorry for the critic.
So yeah, but that's a good feedback. That's a good advice. So fill in, at least if you're not looking actively for publishers yourself in the Meeting app, at least fill in your profile so they can find you. They're looking for you too.
Yeah, and also to add on that, sending meeting requests is also super important. Not like, yeah, we have a project. Yeah, so should I accept this request? Should I now invest time into looking up your website and everything if the profile is not filled, as Ahmed said? So it's always a hassle also for us because not only for us, but also for you, time is money. And if we have to evaluate every meeting request for more than 10, 20 minutes, then it's going to be a rejection most likely. So
it's not only that. If you have like 3 requests in the same time, so you will read it and see which one is the full or more interesting, and you accept it. You don't spend time showing and checking the other 2.
Okay.
Okay, so the people who will watch this in records, so you missed something. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm looking for hyper casual games and light puzzles like 242. We have the developer here with us. Yes, Eugene. He's here. Great game. and Run Sausage Run. And what was the second question?
Did you find at this conference?
I found some games that has a potential, but I didn't find any game that I can say, okay, I'm publishing it right now.
Yeah, but it's really not. Usually, contracts are not signing at the conferences. However, once I signed the contract at the conference, so never say no.
Yeah, so our business model is a little bit different. So we're actually looking to publish older games which have already been launched and have done pretty well at some point in the past. That's just our business model. And I would say at this conference I've seen some games that have potential, but I have to echo what the other folks said on this panel. Scrolling through Pine was really difficult, and you'd be surprised there's only a few profiles that actually even had like a company logo. And so immediately I'm going to go to that and see, okay, these people have taken the time to fill out a profile. I'm much more likely to look at their information and send a request in that case. But there's so many and that didn't even have a company name properly or a website or somewhere we can find information. That's really tough. So I think, yeah, there's a lot. There could be like a whole discussion about how to pitch developers at conferences. We could probably talk about it for another hour if you wanted to.
By the way, what is do you have any information on what is the most efficient source of developers for you? Is it scouting at conferences or emails or like just looking for them?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, conferences are by far I think the biggest, most efficient channel and most efficient way to meet as many developers as possible. And that's the reason why I came to Kyiv, because I know there's so many great developers here in this part of the region. But I think for me, again, Pine was not working. So one of the things I also did was judge the competition. And that allowed me to actually spend a lot of time with a lot of your games. That actually helped me in figuring out who I want to send meeting requests to as well.
So if you're considering participating in any competition, also think that the publishers can be among judges. So it might not only end up with a prize, but with some offer from publisher. So it's good for you not only to get a prize or something. Yeah, there is someone who has questions. Oh, Stan has questions.
Thank you. On behalf
Hello.
of Moderator, I would like to ask you, each of you, a question. I like situations and when we can learn from others. That's why I would like to ask each of you, maybe you recollect some situations working with developers as a publisher where I like game-changing situations where something was as a usual and then it turned into fail or turned into success. Maybe each of you can remember some interesting things that turned the dialogue negotiations with developer to a fail or to a success.
You mean something that looked as a failure in the beginning but turned out to be a successful deal?
For sure.
Yeah? Okay, and the other way around. Yep. Yep, please.
Kind of, it is connected about one of the questions about the passion that was. It just actually it happened like 2 weeks ago. I started to negotiate with the developer that has amazing game for kids. And it's really nicely done. There's a huge IP in it, so everything is very interesting. We're starting to talking to each other. We're Poles, those guys are Poles as well, so it's very easy for us to communicate. And I knew from the very beginning they were very passionate about that game. So we started to negotiating the terms and everything. And I mean, I was pretty much sure we're going to sign that. The whole mood was amazing. Everything was amazing. But then we kind of started to struggle about nailing down like few details in agreement, only few small details. And those guys went crazy. Those guys went crazy really about, I don't know, 5% here, 1%, 1 promile here, and everything. And it just turned the whole negotiations into shit. Because I literally, it's kind of a lesson, I think, for all of us, is that that's something I've learned over the course of last 8 years in this business, is that whenever you hit that point that you start to dragging the line, like 4 inches, and not, you know, being able to do a compromise about that, then you know that the deal will fail. Because even if you're going to sign that, it's going to be hell on the earth for you. So I decided to drop that. And it was the situation exactly that started as a very nice potential, and it ended up as a failure just because of that. I think the papers are very important, but at the end of the day, you need to understand that you're doing the business with people, so it's about trust.
Yeah.
Just
Fair
apply
enough.
to that.
Any other stories?
Got almost similar one. We have negotiation for a long period. I was looking for a trivia game. I found a good one. There was a local publisher and some regional. After 6 months explaining what doesn't mean publisher, why I'm doing marketing, how is that? And the day that we should like start putting the contract, draft of it, he came out and say, oh, I feel that you are taking too much. I think after I have to get 70% after all you are only doing the marketing. So, and it's not about that. It's only this sentence. It means he don't understand what we are doing. So the tip, what I would like to share with you guys, maybe you should inform yourself what do a publisher do, what does this process means, how much it costs. Not in money, but I mean in time. What kind of resources do you need? What kind of budget do you need? What does localization cost? Voice over, etc., etc. And then you can see if it's a fair deal for you or not. I do understand each of you have his baby and he wanted to have the best of it. So it's good to give this baby also to the specialists to know what they are doing. So it's a good game where it turned out very bad.
Yeah, same for us. I mean, there are many phases that you go through from initial contact through a contract signed, and a deal is not done until the contract is signed, and especially like the contract stage. We had a game that we actually had signed already. It was a very complex situation. Then we wanted to re-sign it, so we already knew the game, the KPIs, we had the target audience. Then we sent a contract, and the contract came back with half of it being red. And then we found a solution for most of the things, but then the last thing was governing law. And the governing law also determines the contract. And then they wanted to switch it after we had already negotiated all the terms. Yeah, that was a bummer. And it took a long time. And in the end, we said, no, the release window that we were aiming for, it's gone. And we unfortunately had to drop the whole negotiation at that point. Yeah.
Okay. Any happy ending stories?
Of course.
Good. I knew that.
But I actually wanted to.
Okay, of course. Sure. Yep.
So for us, it happens from time to time because we're testing a lot of games, and sometimes when we test a game, actually more than sometimes, it happens that we think that we really like this game and it looks good, but when we test it, we find out that the retention is not that good, and the developers should move forward to the next game. So in the hyper-casual market, it happens quite a lot, and that's why developers should create more new games and try them out, check them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of examples of where we had low expectations and the game performed better, because if we have low expectations, we're probably not going to sign the game. Most of the games that I've signed over my experience, we always have high hopes for, and unfortunately, it's impossible to predict. Sometimes there's just amazing games and you launch them and you think they're just going to do well, and for whatever reason they just don't. And there's no, it can kind of show that even if you have the most confidence in the world and all the resources, you may not be able to make a game successful. There's no exact science to it ever. You can make an educated guess and try to manage your risk, but unfortunately not every game works out. But to answer your question, there's always tons of happy times with developers too. I'm just trying to think of I think one of the most rewarding experiences I had was when we actually were doing, so there was a tsunami in Japan a few years ago where it kind of devastated the region, and we were just kind of talking to our Game Insight, who is our developer partner, and we said, hey, why don't we do something for Japan, because we actually had launched some of their games and they were doing really well in the Japanese market. So basically within 2 days, we created some in-game items, and the proceeds for those items were to benefit the Red Cross for relief efforts in Japan. And that was an amazing thing, because everyone just kind of worked their ass off and got it done. And we actually did pretty well, made a lot of money. And that was like probably one of my more rewarding experiences working with the developers. So we can have really, really good times as well. It's not all doom and gloom from the publishing side.
I actually wanted to turn it to the positive vibe, and thanks for starting this. And ask you a question. Do you remember what was the best speech you've ever heard?
Sometimes
Jan?
there's alcohol involved,
Do you?
right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I need some time.
For me, the best speech is just a great gameplay video, which I really like and makes me download the game and play. And in hyper casual game, when you find one game that you really like, you are doing like, ugh, and that's when you know that the game is gonna be really good.
Okay.
Actually, I had it last year, and that was a Chinese company where I literally 1 week before that swear never to work with Chinese companies. But they were clever. They picked me up through a friend from the airport, direct to their offices. They show me the office, the graphic, and say, okay, let's talk. That was a good.
Nice.
I have a funny situation. This is kind of a best joke out of the industry I'm talking about. So it was in Korea. We're standing at this kind of like a Google Mixer party, whatever, on G-Star. What?
Just Google.
Yeah. And there's some Japanese guy standing in the corner, and he's like super drunk. He just moves from the wall to wall, and he looks at me like stares at me like for 30 minutes. I wasn't sure what it was that about, but finally he gathered his strength, approached me, and he said something to me. Give me your hand. I'm giving him his head, and he's starting to making like a puzzles on my hand, like a wooden puzzle, something like that. And this guy was starting to talk like English, partially Japanese, something like that. And this was his pitch of basically selling like a board game or something like that. The problem is like I couldn't explain him. I couldn't break him, and I couldn't explain him that I don't do that stuff. And he was like super passionate and talking gibberish at the same time. So at the very end, I told him like I don't do that. And he started to go into fury. So he started to be very angry and shouting at me and everything. So it was like really intense experience in my life. I actually met him after that, I think like a year after that. Obviously he didn't remember that meeting, but I wondered about that game. The guy apparently is very successful. He made a lot of money on that game. I wish I had published that. Well.
Okay, we have more questions in the audience. Yep, here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember
Yep.
that one. Okay, it doesn't make it.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, let's start.
I have a question. I have experience publishing a game with publishers, successful and not successful. And I have experience of self-publishing and successful and not really successful. So is there a reason why developers should go to self-publish? I know you all guys publishers, and you should come to us and publish with us. But is there some reason why I don't go with publishers?
That's a good one.
That's a really good question. Of course, you need to check your needs. I mean, you need to know what you're capable of yourself and what your goals are. So if you want to get your game out there, you need to know how to market it. So you need someone with the knowledge, and you also need the financial resources. So that's usually why developers go to publishers. This can be, as you mentioned, successful or not successful. And also, you should always have the plan B in the back of your head, that if you don't find the right publisher, or it's unsuccessful, and then you still try self-publishing, you should always just evaluate the case of self-publishing. And if you maybe have like some other companies, like advertising agencies, who can help you with the one major need that you have, for which you don't want to turn to a publisher, then maybe that can help as well.
Any more? Yep. Jan?
I actually had a couple of those situations. I think 2 of situations like that where I'm talking with developers and they're saying like, oh, we have really good connections with stores, relationships are built, we have our own marketing budgets, our KPIs are great. And then I'm asking like, wait, do you guys need us for what? And they cannot answer sometimes. And I really had those situations. I said, you guys don't need us. Just do it on your own. I can help you. Like, I don't know, would you like introduction to someone else or something like that? That's, pro bono, whatever. But basically, sometimes they do not need that. And maybe, I don't know, that kind of a chat with publisher will realize to those developers that they're in a position where they can handle it on their own. The problem starts is when they think they can do, but they don't have enough resources and knowledge and skills to do that. That happens as well.
Sorry, let's just continue the round.
I forgot what I was saying. The thing is, remember, for one game or one project, you can look for publishers. So you can like self-publish in your region if you know it well, and you have the people who can do that. And you can get help for other regions. There is many languages you can publish in, many regions, and there's different expertise. And where a game would work like in Asia, it doesn't matter, it will work in France or in Germany, and vice versa.
Okay. Yeah, I think most of the experiences that I've had where we've been successful with a developer, eventually they're making enough revenues and they feel confident enough to start self-publishing on their own. And that's always sort of the best case scenario where they're becoming more successful and building that expertise because you're working with them over time and they're learning how the games are how to optimize their games and how, what are the things that we're helping them with to make their games perform better. So as a developer, you have to decide whether or not you want to build up those skills and expertise in-house. And once you do, then absolutely you should try that. But the other guys here brought up a lot of good points. If you want to achieve the best in certain territories, you absolutely should work with local publishers that know the market better. But then that's I guess it's a cost-benefit analysis for you, whether or not you want to have the bandwidth to manage multiple versions and of the game and work with different contracts and this kind of thing. But absolutely, I think when your company is scaling in terms of revenues, you can take that risk. But I think at the end of the day, the publisher's job is to help make you successful by empowering you with resources and to manage that risk, so you don't have to spend all your budget yourself.
Thanks for the answers. Yep.
Good
Next
evening.
one.
I have 2 questions about China's, and maybe this question will be for Steven. So the first, I have read articles that on this year China government makes some restriction for publishing of new games, and is it correct, especially for PC? And the other questions, it's about the stores for China's market, PC stores, because as I know, there is lots of markets for mobile stores, and is it enough to begin make some selling in China enough to publish in Steam, or should we looking for publisher in China and work with them?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I guess I'll start with your second one first. So for especially for mobile, it makes sense to work with a publisher for Android because there's no Google Play Store in China. So because of that, you have hundreds of third-party Android stores. And really the best way to get your game in as many places as possible is to, this sounds very weird, but most of the successful publishers, you have to give them your source code and they will do the local SDK integrations for you, the local carrier payments, this kind of thing, social integration. So, but iOS, you can do it yourself. PC, I guess there's Steam, there's also WeChat, they have their own, Tencent has their own PC platform as well, but their criteria, I think, changes from time to time. I would recommend speaking to them. For China in general, you are correct. So there are no new games being launched in China, which is not good. But I think that it's a symptom of the Chinese government trying to crack down on kids spending too much time playing games. So as of now, there are no new games being launched. There are companies that are actually launching games. They're claiming that they can, and it's the way they're doing it is basically taking existing games that already have the licenses and using those licenses and swapping the games, and that's how they're launching new games. But if you care about your reputation, I would not do that. But if you're doing hyper casual and you just want to make a quick buck, you could probably do that, but that wouldn't be recommended by me. So, but yeah, App Store still, yeah. So, but there are some whispers that that may change, and they may start to approve new game licenses, maybe Q1, Q2 next year, but nobody knows for sure. Yeah. Nobody knows for sure, but right now it's not great.
Okay. We are publishing games in China in the App Store, as you said, and we are also adding localization. Currently, we are only doing that in China, but your suggestion sounds interesting.
Okay. We had more questions, right? Yep. Yeah, I know. I was supposed to give him a next question, but yep.
Okay, two questions. So first one, whether you are working with only already made MVP of the game, as Steven said, but all of you, whether you are working with idea, some scenario, kind of that, it's one question. And the second one, what the trends of gaming you see? I mean, okay, gaming it's entertainment, but it's basically doing entertainment all that whole quantity of decades. But I suppose gaming could be more. So what kind of feeling do you have about that? That's the question. Thanks.
Okay, so we are also getting prototypes, actually. And we are giving our feedback on prototypes if they are good. If they are not that good, we'll tell you, okay, that's not in our scope. But if they are good, we'll give you some feedback and help you improve the game till it will be ready for testing. The trends that we are seeing on the stores are changes really every month. The hyper-casual market is you can see new trends, new game mechanics, and if you want to keep up and know what's trendy, you can just open the App Store and see what's in the top charts, and that's what we are doing.
Yeah, for gamigo, for the longest time, our strategy has been to avoid as much risk as possible, which means focusing on almost finished projects. But nowadays we're more open to also looking at MVPs, vertical slices, prototypes, maybe even concepts. So we do invest. But I'd say the farther away you are from a release, from a commercial release, at least for us, the less likely it's going to be. And yeah, in terms of trends, I mean, we always see it. I directly see it when I get new games. There's always Battle Royale. We've seen lots of these at Gamescom and at other events. People are pitching those. People are still doing Hearthstone clones. So it's always a trend wave that's swapping over. Before Battle Royale, there was also survival, and apparently everybody's still playing shooters, and they're more casualized, more kid-friendly, although it's a quite hard topic. But yeah, it's also hard then to filter these trends. Does it make sense? Is it still unique enough as a game? And actually, for me, I think trends are not the best thing. Because it's always cashing in, but in the long term you want to have something sustainable with a good core, and then the trend doesn't really matter, at least to us.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Exactly. I'm on the first. To answer the first, I'm seconding Jan here. So Jan's follow Jan. But basically, yeah, we will probably invest and focus on the titles that are more close to the release than concepts, because there is tons of risks that is involved when working with developers only on a concept. Million things can go wrong. So too much risk for us. And regarding the trends, just one thing. I had I did a kind of a research with the data. There is one guy who's called Nick Yi, and he runs something what is called Quantic Foundry, I think. I highly recommend you check that webpage, because the guy runs science behind the gamers. So their trends, what they like to, their psychology behind games. I highly encourage to watch that, because it gives millions of ideas what the games will be about. And he basically shows how big is the feminine audience of the mobile gamers, and I think that's something that it gets very big attention nowadays, but it's still a market that it's not fully tapped to. So that's why all those games like Choices, they're so popular, and that's a great market. But still, I think there are much more genres and different mechanics that can address that audience. So I highly recommend that. I don't know if you guys know that, but 60% of the population of mobile gamers are women. 60%. Quantic Foundry, or something like that. Nikki, the guy is called Nikki. Really good researchers, really good papers. He's very, very scientific. Nick, and the surname is W, not W, Y-E-E. Y-E-E.
Yeah.
Good luck, buddy.
Awesome.
Good luck.
Great skill.
You could be
Steven?
spelling competitions. Have you?
What did you get as a prize? Yep.
In terms of trends, it's really interesting to see how games have evolved. So when in the early days of mobile, when we were looking to publish games in Asia, every successful Chinese game was like, you must have PvP, and it was like not very common in the West. Now it's pretty much common, and I think you'll just continue to see a blend of different genres. So like one of the games I'm playing a lot right now is Empires and Puzzles, right? And the CEO of Small Giant gave a talk in Berlin recently, and he did a ton of research, and he was like, okay, we're making this game, and it's going to be the first one that is puzzle plus city building plus collection, right? So, and I saw a couple games here that are like merge plus idle, and so you're seeing a lot of people like blending a couple of different types of games, and I see a little bit more of that, and I think that will continue. And even in terms of monetization, a lot of companies now are borrowing mechanics. Like gacha was only in Asia years ago, and now it's pretty much everywhere, right? Now ad monetization is huge now, especially hyper-casual games or other casual games. It's understood by mobile gamers that, hey, I'm happy to watch an ad for 30 seconds or whatever to progress further in my game. And so that's a revenue opportunity for you guys as developers. So not only in-app purchases, but I can also show ads in my games as well, and people don't mind, right? Tons of companies are making money on this. So unfortunately, it's not the best in terms of like the art of game making, like game development, but it's another way to make money, and I think people are just going to continue to meld different strategies together.
Thank you. We have time for 1 or 2 questions. So, yeah, you're back, please. You wanted to ask a question? Yeah, about. Just wait for the microphone, please. Okay, so you will be the next one. You're the next one. Okay.
So after this guy.
Or? Oh, okay. You're the first one.
Hi, what for you is a really bold game? What's the difference between unique, unusual, and non-publishable for mass market game? What maybe any criteria? How do you feel this?
How?
For example, I have a game that can teach programmers advanced techniques for architects by quests, by solving quests on TabTale samples. It is not format at all, but it's very interesting. What's for you the difference between what you publish or it's too much, too hard?
Okay.
I guess you already answered yourself. You have a game for a niche that I don't target. If I don't know if any one of us will target that. So that's it. It's kind of what is the target of your game? That will answer your question. And anyone who think about game.
Okay, but if I game and something unusual, very unusual, how do you feel if somebody, if it is good, if it is similar to much or it is...
Okay, I think you're asking, would you prefer more like proven mechanics or more like creative approach? What do you tend to more? Is it what you asked, like in general?
So we actually in the
Okay.
Actually, in the hyper casual market, you can see a lot of games that looks almost the same, and sometimes even by big publishers. So we actually don't like to publish copycats. So what am I looking for is a game that has a good mechanic, and it's okay if it's inspired by a good game with a great mechanic, but it has to have some twist. It has to have something special, something that makes me want to come back and play the game. And if you send me a game that is already live on store and looks exactly like something that is currently there, I will not take it.
So,
what does it mean before? Do something that we never had and for what?
yeah. Yeah, probably you should talk to this exact publisher who told you so, because so you guys are publishers. You have this publisher's mentality. Come on.
So new ideas are always great, but if you want to do something that is already on store, you need to do some twist, and it should be still fun.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question. Yeah.
Hi everybody. My name is Dmitry, and I'm pretending here like a game designer. So I have two questions as well. One is like for closing this discussion. What are the top 3 things that you expect from us, like from developers, to start talking with you? Yeah. So is it I don't know, the most important is trailer or development story or marketing materials? What are the most important things? And the second question is, why do you guys have like ordinary chairs and Lena has one fancy yellow one?
Can I answer your second question? Okay.
Yes, of course.
Let me just answer with this.
Oh yeah, I see. Thanks.
To answer your question, I think it's always I always get really excited when I meet a developer and they have a very clear vision about what they're trying to do, and they're able to communicate that clearly either through a game that they actually have in hand that we can actually try and interact with, or through other means, a trailer, a deck, which is very clear, or just being able to communicate that in a concise way. That's probably the most helpful, in my opinion.
So the first thing that I'm looking at when I get a new game, I'm looking at the gameplay video. So the first seconds of the gameplay video should be really good and make me want to download the game and contact you and tell you, okay, I want to test your game. So definitely for me, the gameplay video is really important. The game should have great mechanic, should be fun, and you should also think about retention. You should think like, what do you have in your game that makes people come back to your game? Because otherwise it will be hard to publish if the retention won't be good enough.
I think it always depends on the situation. If you're meeting me, if you're sending me an email, if you're cold calling me on my phone. I'm usually like a boring guy. I like game decks. Not like game design documents, but just short and precise information about what the game is about, the game scope, unique selling points is usually my go-to. And of course, video is great, screenshots are great because it's very easy to communicate, okay, what's happening in the game, why is it so amazing, why should we publish it? And of course, nothing gets signed unless we get a test build. That's also super important.
So I agree with the guys here. It's not only 3, but let's say the first thing to me is just like Keren is the video. If that catch my eyes, I will come back and then I will be asking. So you have to be prepared. You have to know what's your audience, how the game will be monetizing, and who is the team behind the game. Because it's not the best projects, even if it's super project, and the team behind it, it's also a good team, but we don't understand each other, it won't work. So it's a more than just 3 or 4 or 5 points, but we will get that step by step.
Jan?
Everything pretty much has been said. So. I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Thank you. I think it was a good question as for the last one. Yeah, as a conclusion. And I planned to ask something in the end, but you stole my question. That's okay, don't worry. Thank you for your questions, thank you for being active, and thank you for your answers, thanks for coming. Let's give the big round of applause to our publishers for coming. And now this is the best part. We have to choose best questions and give away prizes. The last question? Okay, so what would it give to this guy? Okay, let's do. You just, yeah. Yeah, the game about that question. He's not paying attention on us. Yeah, we like your question about self-publishing. You can come and pick. Yeah, okay, that's nice. Yeah. Yeah, you were active. You can just pick anything. Yeah, you can, we all don't know. It's a surprise. The first question, yeah, please. We need to know how many surprises left, so just pick something. Yeah. Okay. Show us what's inside. We are all interested.
What's inside the box?
Wow, that's really cool. Awesome. Okay, we have how many? 2 or 3? 3 more? Yeah, please. Jenna? Yep, you can choose.
Did anyone ask a question?
Show up hands who asked questions, because we already done. Yeah, please. Yo! Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for moderating this call. You've done a great job. So probably that's it. And I believe we'll now all go to the main stage for the closing and awards ceremony. So good luck to you, and thank you everybody, and thank you our panelists again.